President Trump and others gathered over the weekend to remember Diamond, the late member of the MAGA duo Diamond and Silk. However, things took a turn at the memorial when Silk seemed to suggest Diamond's death was perhaps vaccine-related. Let's watch.
We laid her, like they told us to lay her flat. They said do CPR, and it was 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. My husband and I alternated and kept going and going and going until the emergency truck came into the yard and the EMS came into the house. They did everything that they could. So what I want to say to everybody is don't you dare call me a conspiracy theorist. Because I saw it happen. I saw how it happened. I was there when it happened. And it happened suddenly. I want America to wake up and pay attention. Something ain't right. It's time to investigate what's really going on here and get some answers to why are people falling dead suddenly.
So I thought this was worth discussing because I think it's implied there that Silk is saying Diamond's death was vaccine-related, alluding to the idea that people are suddenly dropping dead, which I'm seeing a lot of on social media, claims about that. But here's the thing. I think we got to be very careful here, and I think, frankly, Silk is not being careful because, well, for one thing, Diamond and Silk both railed against vaccination, against vaccines. So was she even vaccinated? So either she wasn't vaccinated, in which case this sort of implying this is really misleading, or she was vaccinated despite saying the things she said publicly about the vaccine. So that would be, I think, a pretty serious hypocrisy. I think it's very wrong to mislead your audience, or if you're implying to your audience you think there's something wrong with the vaccines if you yourself had taken one. And then the other thing being, I know she was hospitalized very seriously with COVID a few weeks ago. So then to say that even if she was vaccinated, the cause is somehow linked to the vaccine rather than some lingering complication of the disease itself. So I find this all a little confused from Silk's point of view, and I think it's, look, you can absolutely be against vaccine mandates or have questions about the vaccines, about which age group should get them. If you think the risks or the harms outweigh getting them, that's absolutely your choice, and I think people can make that decision in good faith. So I'm not disdaining that at all, but to just say that if everyone dies now, we're going to say that was because of the vaccine, even if they weren't vaccinated and had recently had a serious case of COVID?
I think when people are grieving, it helps a lot to feel that your personal grief has been caused by a bigger issue. I think people often take comfort in feeling like there's something bigger to blame for when they've been robbed of somebody dear to them. And that was sort of what it seemed to me like was happening here. I think that's a very human impulse. And I think you see that with a lot of people who die or are killed in ways that touch on, culture war issues or larger issues. It just sort of, I think people take comfort in feeling like there's just a bigger crusade at stake, and that it wasn't just like the horror of, a quotidian death caused by something like COVID. I mean, we don't know, right? I think your point is interesting that if the implication here is that she died because she got vaccinated, well, then why was she railing against the vaccine while also being vaccinated? I think also another aspect of this is, the role that Diamond and Silk played in the kind of the imagination of the nation vis-a-vis Trump was always extremely interesting to me, because his relationship with them was it was one of those moments where his humanity really came out. I mean, you could say, oh, it was cynical. He wanted to show that he had support from the Black community. He liked, the how supportive they were of him. They were huge Trump cheerleaders. But I think that the closeness there was not something you can fake. I mean, it was just, there were like 4 or 5 moments, times that showed a different side of Trump, a more human side of Trump, the side that the people who are close to him say exists, that a lot of other people don't regularly see. And in that sense, I think, I think that was a really important role that they played in sort of complexifying what seemed to be very straightforward, easy categories. He sort of, came out and, spoke about his grief. And in that sense, I think it was super interesting. And the reason I bring that up is because, of course, Trump has been a big booster of vaccines. He sort of put his stamp of approval on them. Operation Warp Speed was his. And it's really put him at odds with the more extreme side of his base that's very anti-vax. And sort of leans towards these theories about, we can't really call them conspiracy theories because we really don't know, because so much of the information has been suppressed. But just, the kind of the other side of this vaccine project, being more vocal about the potential complications, and of course these big pharmaceutical companies' requirements that they be protected from any liability there.
Yeah, that is a very interesting point. It's something totally true, and it's interesting. Trump is at odds with the base on that a little bit, the hardcore MAGA base. He gets some of his only kind of boo responses when he speaks about Operation Warp Speed, and he wants to take credit for the vaccines being delivered, and it's sort of a losing issue with the hardcore his hardcore supporters. I don't think it's a losing issue necessarily with the rest of the population. I mean, most people did get vaccinated, like the majority of Americans got vaccinated and don't hold intensely negative views about the vaccines themselves. Obviously, the requirements, mandates are a much more a divided topic, and a topic where I probably agree with the hardcore MAGA people on. And nor did I want to bring this up because I wanted to, make light. I think this is a horrible thing. Obviously, someone dying. I'm very sad for her loved ones, for Silk, etc. But they are public figures. They were public figures, and I think it's when a public figure is using a tragedy. I mean, I say this right when Democratic politicians take tragedies and then start trying to say, well, if only we'd have X, Y, and Z policy, and then Republicans do that on different policies, right? Everyone says, oh, we should have had my policy, and start to use that moment to influence what the laws are going to be or how Americans should feel about something. I mean, I think that's worth probing a little bit, and she seemed to me very much there to be going down the people are suddenly dying and it's because of the vaccine. Which, look, if that's your argument, just show me some data, right? Show me some evidence that that's the case, because people keep pointing to things, and then I look actually at the data, and they're talking about deaths that could not actually be attributed to vaccine-induced heart problems that are, I mean, it's a little bit like anything. It's a little bit actually like COVID deaths themselves now, which Dr. Leanna Wen thinks are being overcounted actually because people get brought to the hospital for some other reason, but if they have COVID, it gets recorded as a COVID death, even if COVID is not contributing to it. There's a little bit of that, I think, even going on with the heart condition deaths or incidents that are affecting athletes and young people. I mean, if you look at that database that was cited by one of the very kind of anti-vaccine doctors, you're looking like, well, some of these people died of like car crashes, right? That's not the vaccine. So
right.
people ought to be, I think, just as I said, people ought to be careful about saying that everybody who dies who had COVID, it's because of COVID, or attributing everything wrong in our society to long COVID, which is a subject I think you and I feel similarly about. We've talked to some guests about it and gotten a lot of blowback from that on social media. I don't know how your your mentions were after we did that interview with the New Republic reporter on long COVID, and the people came for me after that one. But similarly, I counsel a little bit of skepticism or caution with the vaccine deaths. So with the alleged vaccine deaths.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, of course, just a month into the pandemic, conservatives were saying, look, you're overcounting the deaths. Like every person who comes in with a heart attack who happens to have COVID, you're saying is a COVID death, right? So of course, to now see the liberals admitting that, I think is very frustrating.
Exactly.
Again, with never any acknowledgement that, some people got there 2.5, 3 years ago, right? I look, we don't know what Diamond died of. I wonder if we will, if that information will become public knowledge. I just don't begrudge somebody in the grip of grief, trying to find some larger thing to blame. And I would begrudge her. I wouldn't begrudge her, even if it turns out that she died of COVID because she didn't get vaccinated, right? Because she didn't get the thing that makes the symptoms less serious. I think, again, in the grip of grief, you can't really fault somebody, even if they're a public figure, for saying something that, may or may not be based in reality. But we'll probably find out more, and then, we'll be able to judge and add it to, the wealth of information we have and make more educated decisions going forward.
All right, well, we will continue with more Rising in just a minute. Please stay with us.